Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 172. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday as usual, and good to be back as I head into these final episodes of the 2023 season. It's been a good one. I've been having a really good time talking about Telemark this year and watching everybody get out there and make some turns. Last week, did a little debrief on the World Telemark Day stuff. We had a great event at Alta, and there were so many great events going on all over the world, and that was super exciting. So as far as events coming up, we've got Sun Valley, Idaho, Hawaiian Nationals happening March 18th. So be sure to head up there to Sun Valley to participate in one of the oldest Telemark events that's still running. And they are a great group of telemarketers up that way. So if you're in Idaho or Utah or somewhere nearby, or you're on the road, Hawaiian Nationals is coming up. Before we move into the podcast, I just wanted to give a thanks to Wendy Bridgewater at Mad River Glen and the Freeheel Frolic. I was able to tune in via Zoom call and do a little gear talk this past Saturday, and that was awesome. It was fun to answer some questions about gear, Telemark, what's going on in the Telemark world, and really appreciated her inviting me to do that. Also, Scufinata happened this past weekend over in Moena, Italy, and super stoked that they're still running that event. So hopefully all of you Italians and people in that zone enjoyed a good time. So, all right. Well, today I've got one of my good buddies, Craig Dostie, back with me in the house. And we just actually got back from doing a little ski tour, walking around and enjoying some turns, and it was good to get out. So welcome back, Mr. Dostie.
It's great to be here. It was really good to get out and earn some turns. We didn't make that many turns. We did an awful lot of earning. and a part of that was, I think... Well, I didn't do it every 3 steps, but I could have cleaned out the snow that was automatically building up underfoot every 3 steps. I think I went every 10 or 20, but it was really annoying how easily I basically felt like I was climbing with climbing wires, but I had not lifted any climbing wires. It was just the snow building up very quickly every single step. And I think you were experiencing a similar thing.
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely did more walking than skiing, but it was good. We did a little gear testing, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're in Utah, but it felt like Tahoe. Like literally the snow looked like Tahoe POW, sort of that creamy maritime snowpack on top. So I guess that means spring is here in the Wasatch, or wherever we may have been, secret location. Yeah, it was crazy. So that's kind of what we want to talk about a little bit today. We were on the skin track and kind of talking about sort of tech tow and touring on a tech tow. I was on the 22 Designs LYNX. Craig was on the new Voile Transit. So if you've watched our YouTube channel, he was talking a little bit about that. And Tay was talking to Mark Christopherson from Voile at World Telemark Day. So there's a couple videos on our YouTube channel. If you haven't watched them, you can kind of get a feel for the tech tow technology that's has been happening for quite a while, but Voile's in the mix. So, but yeah, Craig, what did you think about the I guess today was interesting because we were both having a similar issue with the snow. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, first off, I have to admit I can't lay all the blame with the binding. Number one, as you said, it was like Tahoe snow. It was fairly moist, and it was great snowball snow. Okay, it packed up really, really well, and way too easily. And it was, I'd say, it was about 10 inches to a foot deep. So I was breaking trail most of the way. And so when you're breaking trail and it's at least a foot deep, you slide your ski forward, you set it, your ski sinks down about a foot, and then all the snow just kind of falls in from the sides. That's what happens when you're breaking trail and it's fresh and it's deep. And so it would fall in from the sides, and my foot's lifted, and then it falls in, and then my foot sets down, and it packs. And so there's 2 zones on the transit where snow is going to cling. Number one is right behind the toe pins where the crampon attachment is. But I mean, snow, I'm sure was building up there, but I never noticed that. Where it built up was underneath the back of my foot. And part of that is because I was using my F1s, which have an add-on Michael bolt-on duck butt. And I've noticed before that tends to be a snow magnet. And I attributed that to the fact that I did not, if you will, finish off my install. After I mounted the duck butt, the screw heads are still visible and all that. And I've noticed before that snow would cling to that because it's metal and it gets cold, so snow will glam onto it. Once a little bit of snow freezes to the metal, then more snow clings to more snow, and it builds up very quick. And so a big part of that is this add-on duck butt. And I was hoping that just putting a strip of Gorilla Tape over those screw heads would fix it, but it did not. Okay, so number one, the duck butt added to my F1s was acting as a snow magnet. But then the other thing is, and this is just intrinsic to the Voile heel post. There's climbing wires in the front, which is a high climbing wire, and in the back, which is a low climbing wire. Well, just the presence of that wire between the heel post and the back of the base plate, it's another thing for snow to stick to, and then once snow sticks to that, snow sticks to snow, and it just builds up very, very quickly. So I think in the future, I mean, I didn't really make that many modifications to the binding, but in the future, I will remove that forward climbing post, the high climbing post, because I never use it, ever. I mean, if I almost never use a climbing post, and by the time most of my friends who are AT skiers are going to their high post, either I'm making a new trail because it's too steep if it needs a high climbing post, or I'm like, all right, I'll finally flip up my low climbing post. So all those things contributed to a lot of snow magnetism. And I mean, I was building up easily a climbing post equal to the high climbing post that I hate within 3 or 4 steps. So I was basically skinning up with high heels that I hate. And you were getting the same thing, but not as bad probably.
Yeah. So yeah, the thing that was interesting with LYNX, and the very first thing I thought when you called out the snowpack, and you're like, oh, this is like Tahoe, and I was like, wow, this really is like not typical of Utah. And I think sometimes I'm a bad indicator of some gear testing because it doesn't really get that wet like that often. I mean, even today wasn't even like, it didn't even remind me of like spring snow. Like I think of spring snow, like usually when I think, spring, I'm thinking like the issues you might deal with, like skiing corn or like wet snow, but this was like just dense. And, that was the first time I had the issue with the LYNX where it was like, mine was similar. Obviously I don't have the same situation that you did where you have the cable going back and then you have a gap between the heel and the toe, but I've got the plate with the LYNX. But what was interesting is it was almost like a cookie cutter where it packed in snow from behind the pivot point of the 2-pin back to the claw, and the claw almost was like holding it in, but it was like a perfect like maple bar donut of snow, like kind of a rectangle. It just basically was like the pattern of the plate the whole way. And it wasn't too bad. There was a couple of points where I kind of had the high heel feeling, but it was more just how it packed on there was crazy. It just stuck and it didn't seem to come off. So you got to stop. I will say, and we were talking about this, I've become more aware of the claw situation skiing, where the claw when I've been skiing has come undone. And I think you were saying it was because of snow buildup. And so that's been happening a couple times. But then another annoying thing that was happening when I was climbing was like, you got to watch that snow buildup, because then the claw, for whatever reason, decides to like snap back up, and then you go to step down, and now you're in ski mode on the skin track. And then it's a real pain in the ass, because then I've got to undo the toe, clear the snow, push it down again, push the claw down, and then get back in. So that was definitely my experience with the density of the snow today.
Yeah, the LYNX is it's interesting, because when the claw is down, it's snapped down, it's actually very low profile, okay, and it can't grab the second heel of your boot. But if the snow is sticky, it packs up, and as you know, each time your foot comes down, it packs the snow. Some more falls in, it packs again. Some more falls in, and what I've learned, but I know it was happening very quickly. When I start to feel my heel rise, like I'm up on a heel riser on a climbing wire, that means the snow is collecting there. And what happens is, progressively, as that wedge gets higher and your heel gets lifted higher, like you're on a climbing post, it also pushes the claw back. And it doesn't push it back all at once. It just slowly, as you add more and more gets packed in, it pushes the claw back until the claw, the front detente of the claw disengages from the cam kind of spot that holds it in that position. It pushes it back far enough that disengages, and then it just, at the same time, okay, it disengages. When it disengages, the snow falls away, you put your foot down, and then the claw grabs the second heel of your boot, and you're like, wait a minute, I've been free pivoting, and I'm fine, and yes, I'm raised up a little bit, but how could it possibly grab me? Well, because the snow let go, because the claw disengaged, it snapped up, and you step down, it hooks on, and yeah, you can't just flip it off. You have to step out of the binding. You got to open up the 2 pins, and then push it down, clear the snow out, make sure there's no snow on the bottom of your boot. It just interrupts the flow, and it's very annoying. It isn't a deal breaker, but boy, it's like, what a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. It's, we were talking a lot about like 2-pin technology in terms of touring, and I agree. I always think back to the first time I ever saw this with you, the TTS, like this is like 2011. And I remember thinking, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. So I will say I've evolved my thought process over the years. And it is truly nice to have the free pivot. So I think, despite some of these things we're calling out, it's more just information, stuff to watch out for, maybe something that's happening to you that you don't realize is happening to other people. And that's part of the podcast is just trying to call out things that are going on. And I think where a lot of this stuff applies is, Pacific Northwest, Tahoe, California skiers, Sierra skiers, not so much in Utah, but I don't know, I guess it just, if it's a wet snow day, I mean, you just need to be aware that it's possibly going to happen to you as well. But yeah, overall, I think the Tecto technology It's good, and I like it. It's been really cool to like actually tour on that. That's primarily what I've been skiing this year is LYNX. And yeah, it's a nice feature. I want you to talk to the audience a little bit about the Transit, if they haven't watched the YouTube video of you breaking it down. I mean, funny enough, I knew you were on that because you were on a new pair of Voile skis too. And then it's like, I totally forgot that you were even on that binding. So, I mean, obviously it's like tech toe is tech toe, but is it all tech toe? I know that some people are like, well, it's not NTN because it's a real heel connection. So there's the obvious debate, it's got this, it's a TTS binding. So if you're not familiar with it, even though Voile is putting out this binding right now, this is the original concept, so to speak, of Telemark tech system, which is what TTS is. But yeah, maybe fill everybody in, like what are your thoughts on what they put out?
I think the simple way to answer that is this is the TTS that all the DIYers are trying to make themselves, and there's exceptions to that because some people have made some very innovative adjustable cable blocks, I'll call it just generically, the what holds the cable and the compression springs in a particular position, and people have been very innovative in coming up with different ways to do that. And but Voile, I think, took it to a new level with this. They combined some things that they'd learned supplying materials, basically the springs and the cable rods, to Moonlight Equipment in Norway, because they came up, basically, Bjarte with Moonlight looked at what Mark Lingell developed and said, this is a great concept, but it's not complete. So the cable adjustment needs to be easier. It needs to be easier to adjust, easier to change. And if we make it easy enough to change, well, you could also take it off the ski and put it in your pack so that you had less drag weight going uphill. But it's only drag weight, and it's not a requirement to take the cable off. It's an option. And I think probably the thing I like most about this Voile TTS is it's one unitary base plate that mates perfectly with a plume toe. You can't really mate it with another toe without essentially cutting the base plate. And it's just so clean. I mean, I can understand that you're like, well, but I don't have a plume toe. I have a Dynafit toe, or I already have an Ion toe, or I already have whatever 2-pin tech toe you have. Okay, in theory, you can use any one of those, but the reality is Voile has taken the time to take and set the height of the base plate covering where you attach the cable so that your foot rests flat when it's connected to the 2 pins of a plume tech toe piece. If you substitute a Dynafit, well, that changes the dimensions. You might have to come up with your own shims. Same thing with an Ion. Same, whatever. You just name your other favorite brand of tech toe, and you're going to have to make additional modifications. And you can say, well, but I already bought this toe. Okay, well, obviously you're a do-it-yourselfer, so I would say just finish your do-it-yourself project and use your toe. But if you're not a do-it-yourselfer and you like the whole concept of the simplicity of Telemark tech system, and that's the beauty of this system. I mean, today we ran into very sticky snow, and so we had snow buildup. But I know that if this were my only rig, my standard rig, number one, I would have gotten rid of those extra climbing wires on the Voile heel piece, so those wouldn't have been there to attract snow. There's a good chance that I wouldn't be using a pair of F1s with a modified Michael bolt-on duck butt because TTS would be my main binding. So therefore, there's no reason for a Michael bolt-on duck butt. So that wouldn't be there for Snow to glam onto as well. So we're experiencing some things that I think are not normal for using a TTS system. The real beauty of it is so simple. You just click in at the toes, and honestly, if you're coming from 75 millimeter, the hardest thing you're going to have to deal with TTS probably is getting used to clicking in at the toes. You've got to align your boot correctly. There's some tricks for that. It's not rocket science. It takes a little bit of practice, and once you figured it out, you'll generally step in first time, let's just say 80% of the time. And I mean, I've been doing tech toes now since 2011. Okay, so over 10 years. I did not step in first time every time today. Okay. In fact, I would say I stepped in first time 60% of the time. I missed one, got the other one right. Next time, I got them both right. The next time I missed one, got the other one. So how does that average out? And the bottom line is, so I missed it. Whatever, no big deal. Okay. So I thought it was good. Here's the one thing that probably I said wrong on I don't know that I'm wrong. It's just maybe I overemphasized. I said one of the things with TTS is because you're connecting at the heel, you're going to get more tip pressure in soft snow. I didn't notice it, but I have been skiing tech toes now for 10 years. And part of the reason I put that comment in there is I just remember back when I first tried TTS, it was like, whoa, there is a lot of tip pressure here. I mean, I almost went over the handlebars several times until I adjusted my style. Now I've had an adjusted Telemark style now for over 10 years. So it doesn't really affect me anymore. Didn't cause any problems for me today.
Yeah, that's interesting because, one thing about, is you're talking about the tip pressure. I think about how much skis have changed since 2011. I think it's more likely that you're going to get early tip rise in a ski, in a way that, and we talk about this, people are like, well, what ski do I need to get? And it's like, the ski that we're building with our protectors, it's like we put early tip rise in it for a reason because it tends to help sort of plane upward on the inside leg, so you're not diving the tip, or you're still using Telemark pressure in the same way, but the way that the tip floats to the top on the inside leg seems to help out a lot in terms of not telly rolling and hooking the inside tip. But it's interesting too, because I think when I said I was skeptical, I didn't really finish that thought. I think the first thing that made me skeptical when I saw TTS was I didn't think it would hold my boot in. So that was the first thing, because you're looking at these two little pins holding your toe and you're like, how could that possibly be efficient? And again, 10 plus years later, I don't even think about it, and funny enough, people are skiing it in the resort a lot now too, for whatever reason, because maybe they have one binding. They're like, cool, I'm going to have a tech toe, LYNX, Meidjo, TTS or whatnot. And it works fine. And even there is an argument that it's a superior toe connection. You were the one that actually told me that there's no slop, because you're snapped in and there's no potential for the toe to move inside of a toe cage. So, great bindings. I mean, it's tech toe is interesting. We were discussing before we hopped on, one of the things I was telling Craig is it's not as prevalent. The demand for tech toe, at least in our world, is not as much as people would think either, which is super interesting, because I really do think a lot of people are trying to Telemark inbounds. And so when they do look at that, again, there's the argument that, it's a good toe. It's just the way your toe is in the binding. And so, could it be a resort binding? Sure. But it's really designed for, touring, for kick turns, for gliding, like it's that, as you say, inefficient touring. But it's kind of interesting, like looking at the marketplace, like so many more people seem to not gravitate to it is the internet would make it seem. So I was kind of curious your thoughts. I mean, where do you see it going? Because we've got LYNX, we've got Meidjo, now we've got Transit, and I don't think I'm missing any tech toes, but I'm curious, like where do you see it going? I mean, is there even room? Because let me add one more thing. The Transit, in my opinion, you gave the little brief history of it. For anybody who has followed TTS, you have Mark Langell puts out his TTS like 2010, 11, somewhere around there. He's making his own toe. Then people are using it as a kit, so to speak, and they're coming up with their own toe configurations. And then you have, I forgot Kreuzspitz, which I never know if we're pronouncing that right, but that gets put out, and that's sort of a tech toe version. Then Moonlight Mountain Gear starts making theirs out of Norway, and now really the only TTS system is the Transit, like actually in production that I know of. I could be wrong, but some of those European brands, like we're definitely not seeing them. And then it's the DIY crowd. So I would say the Transit is, like you said, it's like the cleanest version, and it's taken all of these versions, which they were supplying the parts for anyways, and it's like all in one nice package. So the question to you is, where does tech toe go from here? Because I would say that there's not more people to buy more tech toe technology, but I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are. Like, is there room for another? I mean, I don't even know what binding company would make another tech toe, but do you think we'll see another production tech toe binding come out in the future? What do you think?
Well, never say never, I suppose. But I would say we're not going to see another tech toe Telemark binding model unless someone who's really adamant about staying involved with Telemark. They want to be involved with it. They've committed some of their resources already. Here's the thing. There's no perfect binding anywhere, and there's no perfect tech toe Telemark binding. The Meidjo still collects snow underneath when you're skiing in powder, so you can get boot jack. You can get boot jack with the LYNX. LYNX, you can get claw grab. You can get claw flaw. You can get the claw falling off. TTS, you can get snow building up, and it's only you're connecting out the real heel, but you don't need a second heel. Although the reality is, if you're going to use TTS, the reality is you're probably using an NTN binding, because where else are you going to get a Telemark boot with a bellows and tech inserts? It's probably going to be an NTN boot. That's just the way it is. So I don't see any real change, but the reality is there's some icing issues with every one of these bindings. I don't know how you overcome it, because it's snow and there's certain conditions, like today. I mean, it was packing up every step. It's like, oh my gosh, how do we deal with this? Pick another day. That's how you deal with it. Pick drier snow. Pick colder snow. Go earlier in the season. Don't go this day. Whatever it is. Well, I'm not gonna not go touring just because the snow's a little, sticky. I might not go touring because the Avi danger is really high. Okay, that's really different. And actually, even in that case, it's not that I won't go touring. I just won't go touring where I thought I was going to go touring, because I've decided the Avi danger is too high. So now I'm going to tour somewhere else where I reasonably think it's lower danger. So I don't see anything new coming. I think the real question is it going to survive? Okay, because as we were talking, you're like, really, there's not that many people using tech-toe Telemark bindings. It's a fringe of the fringe. Telemarkers being a fringe of the general ski community, and so and within that realm, people who are dedicated backcountry skiers who are Telemark skiers recognize the value of having a tech toe in terms of touring efficiency. All right, that's awesome. I think it also gives you an advantage in terms of lateral stability, but it's not a dramatic improvement. It's subtle. Okay, but some people who I respect, I mean, I thought I noticed it. Scotty McGee's been involved with PSIA for 30, 40 years. He noticed it. A couple other people have noticed it. It's not like, whoa, yeah, this is way better. But it's like, no, it is better. It is tighter. Now, is that enough reason to use it as your resort binding? I don't know. I think a lot of that's going to depend upon when a new boot comes out, and will that new boot offer enough improvement in terms of touring ability, in terms of range of motion in the cuff, that then Telemark becomes more viable in the backcountry. Because right now, most people who are backcountry skiers, and I think this is unfortunate, but they get obsessed about simplistic things like weight. And AT boots are lighter because they're not as complex. It's much easier to come up with a lighter weight plastic on a Scafo that doesn't flex and say, overall, it's a lighter weight package. And light is right when you're going uphill. And I agree, light is right when you're going uphill. But when you're going downhill, and the reason you're earning your turns is because you want soft snow powder turns, ain't nothing better than a tele turn for powder. So it's possible there can be a resurgence of interest in Telemark for backcountry with a boot that has additional capabilities that enhance it for touring. Not that it's going to compete in the weight category, but it'll compete in the efficiency category minus the weight. And that is going to make interest in tech-toe Telemark bindings much higher. So I think they're gonna survive and they're gonna last, but then, I mean, still the number one sellers are gonna be the Outlaw. And I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway because it's gonna be called something else. So there's the Outlaw, and then there will be the In-Law.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. And I was gonna bring this up because I don't know if I shared this with you when I did the lightweight. When I did the podcast about lightweight skis and things to watch out for, I think I got some emails I haven't responded to yet, but people took it a couple of people took it in an interesting way where it was like, I think how they heard it was that I was saying that we shouldn't strive to get better weight. And I was telling you about the hamster comment that I made, which was supposed to be a joke, of course, is having a hamster on your foot equals, 2 hamsters on your back. Apparently that struck a chord with some people. But I wasn't discouraging. I think one gentleman was talking about sort of we need to have lighter weight because we love that turn you're talking about in powder in the backcountry, and that we should be searching for lighter because that gives us more of the turns, which I actually agree with. I can agree with that. Like, I get it. The hamster thing was a joke, everybody. Half a pound on your foot. I told Dostie that today. He got a good laugh out of it. And, it is what it is. Half pound, or whatever it was, a pound per setup. I mean, it adds up. I get it. What I was trying to get at, though, was not discouraging our quest for lighter weight gear, but more saying what we have is a TX Pro. And what I was trying to get at with that one is don't go buy certain skis because they may not, you might not get the warranty money back. That was like the big message I was trying to get at. And, there was some discrepancy too. So people wrote in about Polonia wood, and it's not the wood, it's the pressure of the binding. I think these are all valid points, and I think there's totally a market for TTS. I honestly think TTS will probably last forever, to be honest with you. And I think as we catch up with stuff on the ski side, whether it's longer travel springs, if that is the case, that you could have a Polonia ski and not have to add reinforcements, and the longer travel spring solves you tearing out your binding or whatever, that's cool. Like, I'm all about it, like if lighter's available, more options are available, I think that's great. I think TTS will last for one reason, is it's so simple. Like, that's the one. Well, now that the Transit's coming out, I feel confident. Like, when someone's like, I'm going to do a hut trip for 5 days, that's the binding. Well, and up until now, I would kind of say, hey, TTS of some sort might be a good option, only because I'm trying to imagine myself on a hut trip for 5 days, and knowing my luck, my binding is going to break regardless of whatever binding I have. And when I look at a TTS, I'm like, okay, like, if something goes wrong with that thing, I probably can fix it in the backcountry. Sometimes I hesitate a little bit with Meidjo and LYNX. Meidjo especially, because there's a lot of plastic, like there's a lot of pieces, like it's literally just because of that. I think the Meidjo is a great binding. It possesses all sorts of qualities that don't exist anywhere else in the marketplace, like the releasability and how he built that. But I get concerned thinking about somebody going on a hut trip and getting deep, and then they have a problem. And LYNX a little less so, because that's pretty simple. I feel like the backcountry kit you could put together for a LYNX is like extra flex plate, like unless you like shear off one of the toe pins, you're probably okay. Which is something you're looking at me like, what? We've actually seen a lot of those. Really? Yeah, and we've seen a ton of these pins shearing off. And so that's been a totally crazy thing to see this year was, and hopefully I'm not jumping around too much, but like that's pretty catastrophic. Like if a pin, what I'm talking about is the pins that go into your boot over time. I just being around the shop the last 2 months a little bit more, I've actually seen, I would say at least 3 while I've been in the shop, people coming in and the pin sheared. So literally it's just gone. And now there's no connection to the boot. And I was talking to one gentleman about this, and interestingly enough, he's primarily a resort skier, but he loves the Meidjo. And we've seen this a lot with like older telemarkers that they love telemark so much, but they really want the release function. And so that's what guided them to Tecto, and not the fact that they're touring, but they want that releasability for comfort in the resort, knowing like, I'm not going to totally blow my knee out, etc. That's a hard fix in the backcountry, regardless of the Tecto system. It's like, well, what do you do now? You just like strap your ski with a Voile strap to your foot and hike out, I guess. I don't know. So anyways, point being, I think the Transit's going to last a long time. I think from a simplicity standpoint, like it's very like utility, and it's right up the alley. Simple, solid backcountry. I mean, like Voile's motto, I mean, that fits it. It's like no frills. Like it's just like this simple unit, and it's easy to fix. But yeah, I even asked that question to you, like, would we see another one come out? And it's kind of funny because there's really only 2 other binding companies that I can think of, is Bishop and Rotofella. And I don't see them going down that route. I would be surprised. But also I think, you kind of hinted at it, I don't know if, frankly, I don't know if anyone's even thinking about the resort binding. And I kind of always wonder, like, maybe that's where someone's effort might go next, but I don't know. We went down the rabbit hole of bindings, but I don't know. Do you have anything else on Tecto?
Well, if you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you're going to go backcountry, you want it. And here's the other thing. You might be one of those guys who's like, yeah, but I don't want to upgrade. I don't want to go NTN. Here's the thing. TTS doesn't, it's not NTN because it doesn't connect at the second heel, but it requires an NTN boot. But because it connects at the real heel, it's going to ski closer to what you're familiar with than a Meidjo or a Lynx would, or if you're coming from 75 millimeter, or an Outlaw would, or even a Free Ride or a Freedom. So there's some value in that. Beyond that, here's the thing: we're emphasizing this minutia. The reality is, it's about, we're making a big deal about all this because this is all related to the Telemark turn. And the turn is what we have in common. And the reality is, Alpine turns are not as 3D as a Telemark turn is. And neither are snowboard turns. Telemark is very unique. And why would you want to do that? Well, because you love skiing powder. Josh just sent me, just gave me a little note here. So one other thing on TTS. So the mounting pattern, it's an 8-hole mounting pattern on Voile Transit binding. It's 2 4-hole patterns that are both 30 millimeters wide by 27 millimeters long. That's the base plate pattern of the plume toe, and just for simplicity, Voile decided to make that the pattern for the cable block where your cables are connected to the binding. And there are 3 positions that you can put the cable in: soft, medium, stiff, or and again, I still haven't measured it. We need to do that one of these days, but I don't think it's really that critical or important. Soft, medium, and stiff really are the best descriptors. The forward position is about 45 millimeters behind the tech toe pins. The medium position's about 52-ish, and the most aggressive position furthest back is about 60 millimeters back. Without getting into the minutia of the numbers, again, it's soft, medium, stiff, and where you set that is it's dependent upon your personal style. And I think that's one of the nice things about TTS. There's a lot of people that want a soft flexing Telemark binding with an NTN boot. And at this point, there's probably only 2 ways to do it. You get a Voile Transit and you put it on the first position, and you get a long travel spring, and probably the soft springs, or you get a Meidjo with a single spring and you set the pretension to no more than 3. Those are really your only choices with an NTN boot to get a soft Telemark flex with newer technology. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up. We just kind of wanted to, we were out skiing, we were talking about a lot of this stuff, and I think this was a sort of a good way to sort of debrief on some of the topics and the transit. And honestly, I'm really excited that they kind of finally cleaned up. I always thought, like, why are you guys supplying all these parts to these different companies and not just make your own binding? And that has gone on for the entire history of Telemark, as far as I can tell. One company would make parts for another company, and it had a different logo on it. So I mean, it's not that strange or atypical, but I'm glad they cleaned it up, and I think there's a really good product there. And not even an endorsement, so to speak, but just like, it's cool that it's there. At least at this point in the conversation, I can't even talking to you. It's interesting because I think we both, we don't know what would come in the future, but I'd be really surprised to see if there's another tech-toe competitor, because those 3 bindings are pretty good. I mean, if they keep improving little tweaks on them, obviously the anti-ice thing, I mean, that's like an age-old problem that's always existed in all Telemark bindings. So we'll see what happens with that. But good to have you on, Mr. Dostie. And hopefully that was some little info for you to chew on for the week, everybody. I'm sure, we've still got some time. I know I'm only going to be doing a few more podcasts. I think April 3rd is going to be the last one for the season. I'm going to take a little sabbatical over the summer, but hopefully that'll give us some time to get out and ski some of this stuff. Just get some more feedback on, tech toe bindings in general. Obviously we have no news on boots, but we'll for sure tell you, because obviously that's something that's important to us as well.
Oh, no. We have news on boots. You'll really like the color scheme.
I don't know what he's talking about. But when we have, we've talked about that. I mean, boots are being tested. A deadline for when those boots are actually going to go live. Trust me, I'll be the first one to tell you all when that happens. But just to wrap up, we're going to be, we're kind of slated for April 1st being the last day of the shop. Everyone that came to the sale this past Friday, thank you so much. We appreciate all of your support. It was an awesome day. It was great to see so many familiar faces. If you haven't gotten on the website, we've slashed all the prices on the website right now. So there's still a bunch of good deals. There's skis, there's bindings, parts are on sale, lifestyle stuff's on sale. So it's a good opportunity if you're looking to kind of stock up on some stuff, large or small, going into the springtime, and maybe something that you need that's at a good price for next year. Definitely go pick that up at freeheellife.com. If you want to stay in touch with us, sign up for the mailing list. That's the best way to stay in touch with us. And of course, you can find us on the social media at Freeheel Life. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Josh Nomadson. Feel free to add me there. Shoot me a DM with some questions if you got it. And I always appreciate the support on that platform, and appreciate Craig coming by and actually getting out and doing some skiing with him. So hope you're all having a great week, and hopefully you'll get some turns in the zone that you are in. And until next Monday, spread Telemark always, my friends. See you later.